Let's begin now.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I'm your host, Red Kachik, joined today again by Axis to preview the Genesis Invitational, a super strong field being played at Riviera Country Club, an old-fashioned golf course, been played here for a long time. So we'll be diving into this. We're not going to do a recap this week. Obviously, Nick Taylor won the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. And, you know, transitioning this week is probably the strongest field, one of the strongest for sure you'll see all year, but definitely the strongest you've seen all season so far by a long ways. So I'll go ahead and bring in Axis, and then we'll get going. Had good feedback, actually, Axis, on last week's podcast, so we'll try to keep the same structure unless people that didn't like it just kind of stayed in the hedges.
Yeah, if you don't like it, though, got to speak up because all we heard were pretty solid things about it. Keep it nice and short, to the point. Instead of racing through everybody. I'm excited. Always a fun event. I unfortunately will probably not be watching too much of it, going down to Florida to celebrate Sky's bachelor party, actually. So,
Oh boy.
Hopefully there's some hungover sweats on Sunday. But up until Sunday, it could be, there might not be much golf being watched this weekend. More NASCAR. Fun.
That's the way to win, though. I mean, you could actually win both. Although NASCAR was rough to me Sunday.
I mean, you sweated $1 million without even sweating it, right? So I'd love to just wake up and come to on Sunday and be like, look at that in the account.
I mean, I assume Asimo wakes up in the morning and just kind of hits withdrawal and doesn't really care,
right,
what the number is. Just
request.
I played all these sports, withdrawal.
Right, request.
That's the life. So I do have a couple shout-outs. We didn't have a millionaire maker, obviously, this last week, but I did want to give a quick shout-out to Papa Wolf. Goes by Chucklesby on DraftKings. He won $5K. Has really sick lineup. I think it would have won the Club Twirl, if I'm not mistaken. We can't really talk about hindsight throwing it into some other contest, but 584.5 points is super solid for a golf course that was giving up so many bogeys on Sunday for him to hang on and still win. So congrats to Papa Wolf, Fantasy Golf Bag member. And then also, quick shout out for the new Fantasy Golf Bag app available on the App Store. It's only available for iPhones right now, but you can go out now and download it. Just search Fantasy Golf Bag in the App Store for iPad or for iPhone, and you can download it. And then you can have all your live stats throughout the tournament, so you can build your showdown lineups. There's a fantasy lineup builder in there. There's a lineup builder in there. With the different fantasy slates. So obviously Showdown, Weekend, it even has Euro loaded in there. So we don't have Euro stats loaded into the app, but if you do want to build Euro lineups, you can also do that. So definitely go download it. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a fun project, and we hope to add a couple more features here in the next couple months to further kind of progress a lot of the Fantasy Golf Bag tools we've developed on the site and make them more mobile friendly. You can, be out on a date with your wife or girlfriend or something and be building lineups and researching, and no one even knows it. It's awesome, in my opinion. So
yeah, it's pretty slick.
I know you had a chance to check it out.
Yeah, it's slick. It's just nice having it right there. You don't have to click through everybody's name on the PGA app. You don't have to go to some other website, then open up another browser in your phone. It's just nice having it right in one spot, and it's only going to improve. So.
Yeah, and even for us, obviously, we have the Live Strokes game, which is free on the website, and the Showdown model for premium members. But I just always felt, man, if you could have it on your phone and open an app to it, the convenience of that at night or wherever you're at is so much easier than like even pulling up a mobile version of a website and having to scroll through a table. So yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. It's all segmented out by strokes gained, approach, driving, putting, etc., and round by round stats. So it's a huge benefit for Showdown lineups on the go. And of course, the Showdown model is the full-fledged model that you can build for your Showdown lineups, and that's available on the website only. Hopefully we can integrate that very soon. But I think that's pretty much it, man. We can go ahead and dive into the course very quickly, and we'll kind of talk through some notables that obviously have played really well here, and then we can get into the DraftKings pricing, kind of talk through our top guys on our list for this week. So The Genesis Invitational being played at Riviera Country Club, super old golf course. It's a par 71, 7,300 yards. It's an interesting design where obviously number 10 is famous for being drivable, but a lot of the other holes, it somewhat takes driver out of your hand just due to the dog legs and the tree line on some of these holes. I think the driving accuracy at 56%. So it's a little bit lower on the spectrum. I know you have some data on the rough and stuff like that where it's not very penal. But 278 yards driving distance. So like obviously these guys, you look at a field with DJ, Bubba, and the driving distance overall, it's 278. Kind of gives you an idea of where the golf course presents itself for these guys. It's primarily going to be a second shot course. Green regulation at 61%. Proximity average at 38.5 feet. Pretty far out there if you're considering the length of the golf course and taking driver out. And then the average approach is at 160 yards. But that also includes number 10, which is, like I said, drivable. But I'll defer to Axis. I know he kind of looked at the fairways versus the rough, and there's not a huge difference there. They tend to keep it down. And then I guess we can touch on the weather once you get through your spiel, just because it seems to be playing a lot different this year than in years past.
Yeah, so I stripped away par threes, only looking at fours and fives, and the rough just really isn't that penal, and that's scoring relative to par from rough or fairway. So as long as you keep it out of the tree line, you should be good to go here as far as compared to the average course. So that can lead to guys who are longer off the tee having an advantage at most courses when the rough isn't penal. However, like you said, how this course plays, off the tee does rank up there on this course, but excuse me, it's not the end-all be-all, especially like you said with clubbing down. And you can also get a nice boost with a pretty sharp around the green game here. And it's going to call for iron shots from just about everywhere. There are a handful of very short approaches. You mentioned if you lay up on 10, that would be a short one, but there's a few others. A majority of shots, though, will come from 150 to the 200 range, slightly closer to the 200. So I did filter some strokes gained from those different buckets there. So it'll really test the overall game, and with this deep of a field, hopefully it's a pretty exciting Sunday afternoon for everybody.
Yeah, I think a big takeaway on this golf course, obviously it's not very easy. Looking at the driving distance and accuracy combo with the green regulation, but the stroke average was just at 71. And if you look at the winning scores over the last couple of years, you're looking at 14 under par last year, 12 under par, 17 under par, 15-6, 15-11. So it's not going to be a very low scoring event. I'm not really sure, so that kind of leads into the firmness of the golf course. I'm like tempted to say the firmness is going to make this play a little bit more difficult than easy. I feel like the softer overall course, you can look at the driving distance. They're not having to hit 300-yard drives, and the softness takes away from their approach distances. The firmness should even help their driving. They can hit less clubs off the tee with more roll. And then the firmness of the greens, though, I think will hurt quite a bit. So I think the scoring will actually be at 14, 15 under par or under. I don't know if you have a take on that, but I think that was the biggest thing we talked about last year was how wet it was, and this year seems to be much drier over there in California.
Yeah, I don't really have a take on the scoring itself, other than, I don't expect it to be a low-scoring affair, that's for sure, with how the conditions are setting up. Like you said, the ball will run, but as much as it runs, you're going to have to have some touch coming into the greens there. So, and there's always everybody always talks about how the greens here slope and it can be a real pain. So it's always nice to see the guys struggle a little bit. So I actually do hope it's kind of firm. It's fun to watch them have to think.
Yes, absolutely. Notable course history real quick, and then we'll dive right into it. But I know people kind of mentioned that as feedback. Obviously, Bubba Watson's won here 3 of the last, 7 years?
3
years.
times since 14. And it's an even year.
3 in the last 6. Yeah. Oh, you're right. So this is a
trends, everybody. That's what you come here for.
Trends. So you got Bubba with 3 wins. DJ, he won here in 2017. JB Holmes, obviously, last year. So plenty of good names. And as we kind of roll into the top of the board for DraftKings, we'll go ahead and start there. And you look at the guys, I'm not going to name them all off, but they all have great form coming in, obviously. It's a super strong field, so you can have plenty of cheap guys you can fill with your rosters that you feel comfortable with if you want to play in all of these guys. I mean, Rory, JT both finished in the top 5 last year. Rahm and DJ both inside the top 10 last year. I mean, there's very little lenience that I have between any particular guy. If you look at strictly pricing, and I know you are playing some cash this week, I'll be playing mostly GPPs just because you can basically build any roster you want, balanced or stars and scrubs, and feel pretty good about it. But I don't know. You look at the price savings, and I don't even think price is really a factor for me this week. Rory at 11.6, John Rahm at 11.2. Dude, I have no really particular take on any of these guys up top. I don't think price is an issue, but I think if you're playing GPPs, if 1, 2, or 3 of these guys fit your fancy, or you think you can X out 2 or 3, there's very, very close similarities between them.
Yeah, I have, like you said, you can make an argument for any of these guys realistically. Making me choose, I go with Rory at 11.6 and JT at 11K. I think they're the 2 best golfers in the world. You can argue about Rahm all you want to. I know someone will have an argument for that, of course. Also very talented. I think Rahm actually ranks out second for me. So I will artificially bump JT to that in my own rankings. But those would be the 2, so GPP-wise, I guess, that I'd focus in up here. I don't think you need to get here for cash at all. However, if you really think you really have pegged the winner this week, you could do that because, like you said, you can lock one of these guys in and you can go find somebody pretty cheap to play and feel safe. It's a smaller field too, being an invitational this year. The cut won't capture quite as much as the field as it typically would. If you want to factor any of that in, I don't foresee myself using Rory or JT in cash, but gun to head of the expensive golfers, those are my favorite 2.
Yeah, I would. So my initial lean was JT. That would be my top choice there, but I'm getting more and more sold on Rory and more and more, or I guess less sold on Rahm. Just between the pricing between JT and where McIlroy's at. The other guys, though, who's to say how DJ comes back out and plays, and then we can drop down to the 9K range and talk a little bit more about it. But I do think, and not to spend too much time on it, because hopefully we can start to nip this in the bud for the rest of the year, but I do think people spend a lot of time in these stronger fields trying to figure out exactly who to play. And if you're playing cash, obviously it's a lot goes into strategy and lineup construction, but you're looking at GPPs, and unless you're really trying to make a stand somewhere, there's very little you can say to deter any of these guys from playing well. Like you couldn't tell me, a really strong case for why DJ would play worse than JT here, or vice versa. So in that situation, it's kind of a wide open GPP pool for me up top.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost one of those weeks where you want to, if you really are confident with some lower guys, you could just stake these lower guys a little higher than normal, and instead of sprinkling the bottom tier, you sprinkle the upper tier and hope you catch the winner.
Well, that's my thoughts on these type of fields, because you can kind of make the argument for the Masters just because it's a smaller field, or because it's a smaller field, it's probably not a perfect comparison just because you have the same strength of cheap guys. I would make that case.
At the Masters, you can cut the bottom 15 guys out too.
Right, and then what happens though is people spend so much time trying to figure out who they're going to play up top, and if you spend a little bit of time down at the bottom, like we did that cheat sheet last year, where we tried to really find cases for playing or Xing out guys under 7,200, because that's really, if that's the spot to kind of narrow your pool down and spend the time, that's where it's going to be. It's not going to be up top figuring out if Tiger Woods or Rory or DJ are the better fit here. So not to go on a tangent there, but that is something for sure in these stronger fields where I think people misuse their time by trying to figure out like, oh man, Rory, is he really should he be priced more than Rahm? Should I play him over Rahm? Like, you're starting to overthink it, guys. You probably want to worry about that $70, $100 guy you plugged in there that you didn't think twice about, and maybe go find a pivot. So that's all I have to say on that topic. We can walk down into the 9K range. So I'll let you lead off, or if you have anyone here in the 8K range, this whole range is wide open for you.
I don't see how I'm going to be able to avoid Brooks at 9.4K. I know, and I don't know if I'm a critic of Brooks. I'm pretty harsh on him, though, compared to most. I definitely am one of the statistical believers and backers when it comes to him, instead of just saying he's the best golfer in the world because he shows up in majors. I definitely bump him lower. However, at 9.4K, he is obviously more than capable of winning this, like many of these golfers at 9K and above. And he does have extremely high upside. Hopefully we get it. We haven't yet really this season. So who knows? He doesn't really play in Cali all that much, but didn't really stop him at Pebble last year in the U.S. Open. So again, obviously the talent's there. You could play Bubba instead of him, Hideki, whatever. I don't see how I can really. I'm probably not going to get away from it. So Brooks at 9.4. Plus Sky would really hate me if I just. Although I wanted to not say a word about, like, just have you and me both skip it, like he's a nobody. But it would really affect Sky's emotional state.
And he played good. He played good over Desati. Like, at least the first round I watched him. I mean, it's a stupid win. I don't know how much you can really take away. But he played.
He showed up. He cashed
as far as I could tell, he played better tee to green than Phil for that tournament, at least from what I could tell the first couple rounds. I know Phil finished third or whatever, second, but Brooks was like somewhere like shoot even on the first 18, and he like kind of got into contention after round 2. So he's not really like rusty just because he hasn't played on the PGA Tour in a while.
Yeah, he's been playing, so it's not like pure rust. I don't know. We'll see what I don't know if he's still feeling the knee, if he was ever feeling the knee. I don't really get into that. But at 9.4K, and obviously I won't be alone in playing Brooks Koepka this week. The other guy, and this is where it got tough because, again, you can make an argument for a lot of these guys. Man, Adam Scott has burned me so many times when he's been in this price range.
Yes.
So many times, and I just go back like a sucker. But... yeah. He's played well here. Again, not really a course history person, but I need anything to make me feel warm and fuzzy about a guy who has just burned me so much. But at 9K, maybe getting over the hump in Australia, getting a win, doesn't matter what tour, how weak the field, just something in his brain, like just I can do it still. I can win. I don't know. He ranks pretty highly for me based off last year. No wins or anything, but I think I really like him this week. Solid around the green. Obviously, the irons we all know about. So I definitely will be on Adam Scott at 9K.
Yeah, I have some interest in Brooks. So just to kind of echo some of your thoughts there in this range, Bubba's got to be pretty chalky, I'm guessing. A couple of you talk about the course history. Obviously, Bubba's played really well here. Some of the course narratives will be around Cantley and Homa. Personally, it's going to be somewhat ownership projection driven, so I haven't finished running our ownership projections yet. But like for me, I have to imagine like Bubba's going to be chalk city off of 2 good finishes and playing well statistically. So Brooks seems like an easy pivot down at 9,400. The other guys in this range, like honestly, I have an easier time feeling comfortable excluding guys like Finau and Matsuyama. Xander's always a wild card, to be honest. Xander's a tough one to like. Is this his week, or he hasn't really popped for sure at this event. But at that price, it's really hard to overlook Xander when he's 10K in some fields and he gets overlooked and wins. But like Finau coming off of the loss at the Waste Management, never really played well here. Hideki kind of the same boat. Those are guys that I do think will get some ownership, and I'm fine fading them. It's a different story kind of for the 10 and 11K guys versus this range. But I will ride the Adam Scott train with you. Obviously at 9K, you're not really concerned with cut equity. You still want a little bit of upside. And obviously he's played very well here over the years. So I would probably lean that. And then, like we said, the balanced approach is certainly viable. As we kind of go down in the 8K range, Justin Rose was probably the first one that stood out when you look at his price at 8,500. I don't know if you had any thoughts on like some of the other guys around him that have had like decent showings, like a Leishman. But Rose, from a consistency standpoint, at his price, he hasn't played here in 3 years. He finished fourth in 2017, so I would mark that as positive course history.
He has played here a lot though in the past. So
he has in the past, but it's been a while since.
He does know the course though at least. So.
Oh yeah, I mean just in this 6 of the last 9 years.
Yeah.
It looks like he's played here. So that's excluding the last 2 years. But I do think he's probably one of the easiest ones. I'm sure his ownership will be up there. This one might be the tough range to figure out if you need a GPP pivot, because I have to imagine Rose gets it. I have no problem going back to Patrick Reed. I just think he's playing better. T. Green's been playing really well. He played over at Saudi. I don't have an issue with that. But the down low 8Ks, so Abraham Answer, Colin Morikawa, and Sung J M, I'll be playing all three. I am not scared to chase Answer playing well. I think he's just playing, closer to his baseline. He's just getting better, and I think the confidence helps. I do think this is a good golf course for him. Morikawa is just a stud. There's not much you can say about that. I don't think he's missed a cut on the PGA Tour since his inception last year when he turned pro. And he's coming off a 25th of the Waste Management where he lost 5 strokes putting. So, yeah, I'll take my chances with Morikawa at 8,100. And then the last one down there, Sung J M. There's a blend of safety, and then some of these guys, it's like, well, they have so much upside at their price as well. I can't be dumb and exclude them. So those are the guys that I really want to kind of plant my flag on.
Yeah, you touched on quite a few that caught my eye as well for obvious reasons. Rose is up in the air. I want to play him. I almost wanted to bet him. But I don't know what changed, but something since winning the Farmer, but at that price, it's going to be hard for me to stay clear.
But I think he's the safest of this bunch. You have to admit there's question marks around everyone in the 8K range, besides the guys at the very bottom.
I'm curious.
Mickelson, Spieth, Reed, Leishman, Day, those aren't guys. You could play them in GPP, sure, but I'm just saying, from a consistency standpoint, I would be very hard-pressed to find someone in this range that has better cut equity, tied with upside outside of the bottom guys than Rose.
So Reed, as you touched on, is the interesting one because his game does suit here. His only missed cut was the Sony, and I don't know if that was weather-related or he didn't putt well either. But his sixth bounced back after that missed cut with a 6th at Farmers. Started the year with that 2nd place Tournament of Champions. I think it'd be hard for me to get away from Reed. I think I could play Reed in cash if I didn't want to go Rose. And I'm curious to see what ownership projections come out for Reed because I think that will determine how much Reed I use. He is the highest rated golfer for me in the 8K range, and right behind that would be Morikawa, and he continues to strike the ball extremely well from the key distances that he's going to see at this course. Off the top of my head, I'm kind of struggling trying to remember him at some courses that force you to club down because he also has been a very good golfer off the tee since he began his pro career. So I'm curious to see how that goes, but he's also...
His irons are good enough.
He's played 20 events, and I think he's only lost strokes approach twice, and that was, and he hasn't done it since August. That's in laser rounds. So he definitely has the irons to play well here. He's been middling of late. The upside has been lacking, a bunch of T25s, but nothing really scaring anybody. No true T10 since Safeway, since I'm not really going to count Tournament of Champions at that small field. But he's making the cuts. Maybe that's just being a rookie. He's got to figure out how to get mentally through long weekends. I'm not really sure. I can't imagine that type of event. So I really do like Morikawa again this week, though, for just his overall iron play, specifically from long distances. I think that will be a good weapon for him this week.
Yeah, I was trying to look because he played at Cal, and I know they had the NCAAs back. I think he was in college then at Riviera. I was curious what he finished there because I think Homa won it, if I'm not mistaken. But that's beside the point. I was curious though if Morikawa has some type of hidden gem from his days in college because being a California, I actually don't know if he graduated, but going to Cal. He's got experience out there on POA. He's got experience at this golf course. I'm curious what it looked like.
For sure.
So let's go ahead and hop down to the 7K range. I have a feeling there might be a couple in the high sevens you have interest in, and they are heartbreakers to say the least. And then I do have some, obviously the low sevens, there's a few, and I have a few to finish off one in the 6Ks that are going to be some fun GPP fillers for me. But I will say in the high sevens, then I only have two in the low sevens. Sergio coming over from the European Tour is going to be one in my GPP pool for sure. I don't know how many times on the European Tour. Obviously, we keep European Tour stats for our Euro DFS package. And he's always like 98th percentile green and regulation. He's like 88th percentile driving accuracy. He's 80th percentile driving distance. Like ball striking wise, the guy can't miss. And I don't want to say he's a trap because he still plays mostly well in every event he tees it up. But man, he's burned me quite a few times when he's the highest priced or 10.5 or something, and he doesn't do anything with the putter. But with that being said, he does have two top fives here. He's only missed the cut once in 6 events at Riviera. I think his consistency tee to green is great. I have no issues. I actually think you think about a Spanish type style golf course, like old, undulating, hilly. I'll make the hot take argument that this is a very similar Spanish type event for Sergio to play well at. So if you look at the ball striking numbers, Sergio is going to grade out extremely well for us on the European Tour side, which obviously translates. But the PGA Tour stats, just because he hasn't played many events since the end of the fall swing. I mean, he's played a couple of the fall international events, but they don't have shot links, so we have no idea. And I don't think he played very well then anyways. The other one that I'm going to go back to is Kuchar. Played him last week. He was one of our key points in the Spectrum data that showed a big discrepancy between strokes gained and our data. So 38th last week, 16th of the waste management. I do think he has played very well here over the years. He's finished 28th, 26th, 22nd, and 8th his last 4 years. And when you look at a consistency, kind of like in the same Rose category, I doubt he's going to be much higher owned than anyone in the mid 7Ks. But I think he's got the consistency. And if I dare say, I guess he has the upside to possibly finish in the top 5. He obviously has the upside to win, but in this strong of a field, I don't know if he's playing that well yet. But I do think 7,800 is a fair price for the consistency of him making the cut here.
I think I'll be skipping this range for the most part. I marked Paul Casey as a potential play. I will ignore the disaster that was on Sunday at Pebble. That was just beyond bad. Like that was I don't even know where that would fall on his on a distribution of his scores. But that is not something that happens often, especially with someone as consistent as Casey. So if I find myself with salary in this range, I believe Casey would be my number 1, and then probably Garcia. But really, other than that, I think a majority of the value.
Casey just drives me nuts because of his upside. He just never.
Yeah.
I don't see the upside.
So surprisingly enough, he ranks.
If he
ranks
finishes
okay in my upside
20th.
ratings. I don't include potentially winning in those. So it's mainly upside for some scoring. So. He definitely struggles to win, obviously, but he rates slightly higher than Sergio in that sense for DraftKings scoring purposes. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I guess they're somewhat in the same mold as far as ball striking goes. It's Casey's putting and letting him down, but still, like when he plays well, tee to green, his putting really doesn't jump enough to really. He doesn't finish in the top 10s as much as you would think. He makes a lot of cuts, and maybe like in cash, that's something you can rely on. But man, I have a tough time feeling good about him in my GPP pool, especially considering he's usually popular. I don't know how popular it would be with Morikawa and Sungjae just above him, but that would be my argument against this. Man, could he make the cut? Yeah, probably more likely than not, but shit, he's got to see something, man. Like, show me some pops in the top 10, once every 5 events or something. It's like twice a year.
Yeah, he has not been really chasing in that sense. I think part of it's the fields, which is why he rates out decently enough for me when it comes to scoring.
Strong ones.
Because I'm doing it compared to some average golfers and things of that nature. So
yeah.
I don't know if the field strength knocks him down. Like I said, I honestly think I'll be skipping much of this. I don't think I'm going to have too much salary left in this particular range. Like, honestly, after Casey, I could get behind Garcia, but I really think I'll be just jumping down to the low 7s.
Yeah, let's go down there then, because there's quite a few that we can. I mean, I can make a GPP case for, but like the easy ones for me to like go ahead and mention that I think are. And again, I don't want to talk about price too much, because just like last week, the last 2 weeks where price was big jumps from where they normally are, this is big drops from where they normally are. But I do think when you look at Neiman and Norn and Kokrak, those are 3 for me that really stand out as being, again, not mispriced, but in the range that they're at, they stand out to me as being the most consistent and having upside.
Yeah, we're on the same page this week, which means that we're either on chalk or we're going to lose or win together. So definitely Neiman caught the eye at 7.3, and then the other guy I highlighted was Van Rooyen. So he's getting in on a sponsor exemption. Euro guy, play him a lot. Normally have to pay quite the pretty penny to play him on the Euro side, getting him at a nice discount here. I don't know exactly how he'll handle this course. However, I pulled the 95 shots I had from him last year in some of these key ranges, and he only ranked behind Morikawa and slightly ahead of Justin Rose in those particular strokes gained buckets. Now, he is about 150-ish less shots than them, so the number, to say it's his true number, I don't know. I mean, because it could be better if I had a bigger sample too. But I liked what I saw at 7K. I like the quality of golfer. I think there's plenty of other guys. I mean, I could play Corey Connors. Again, that putter just sometimes destroys his upside more so than others. But Danny Willett, also great with the longer irons. Jason Kokrak, as you mentioned. So I think there's a lot that can be done in this low 7K range.
Yeah, Corey's one on the ball striking list, but I probably won't play him just due to the putter.
I play him far too often.
I just think when you look at like the courses where POA is in play, guys play, show up and putt well year after year on those surfaces. And Corey hasn't done that. I mean, he doesn't show up on any surfaces, but he putts particularly terrible on POA. So like even if he putted great, I don't know if he can ball strike it enough on this type of golf course. And it's a strong enough field. You need to putt well, obviously, to contend. So I don't know if you could ever see a positive strokes gained putting event for him on POA. So I think the interesting one, though, is when you go down into the 6K range, there's a couple, and I have a couple that I'll list out, but Carlos Ortiz is really interesting. When we talked about him coming from the fall swing, he obviously finished 4th at Sanderson Farms, 4th at the Houston Open, 2nd at the Mayakoba. And then when you look at how he's played here since 2015, again, a guy that's putted really well in POA in those years. So I view that as a positive, not a negative. He finished 9th, 26th, and 20th. So I have a tough time chalking up course history to a guy that would be, quote unquote, a scrub. But I think he's been playing well in the last, 6 months or so. And he's obviously played really well at this course with 3 top 26s. So he's one of those at 6,800 that's definitely in my GPP pool. Again, in cash, I don't know the best solution down in this range. It'd probably be best to just avoid it. But I think there's a lot of interesting GPP options here.
I think I'll be back on JT Poston. I've played a lot of him to start the year, going back to since Tournament of Champions, so just the calendar year. And the irons have been pretty solid his last two events. The finishes, not as much, but I think he is underpriced for the ability and some of the upside that I think we can get out of him. You mentioned Carlos Ortiz. I think he could be a darling down here, and I don't mean that he's going to be like uber popular, but I've seen his name floated out there already. And then a guy who I just normally don't play. I don't even know how I'm going to mention him.
Cameron Tringali?
No, I love Cameron. Grillo again rates out very well from these key distances and with the irons, but I don't think the short game is good enough for me to typically play him. Now maybe at the price point some can get in on him, but I mean just looking at the short game is historically atrocious with him. So and that's around the green and putting, but he's so good with the irons from this distance. It could be tempting, but yeah, I mean, you mentioned Tringali, 6,500 for sure. I can definitely get in on that. Lanto flashed again after some real crapper rounds. Finally kind of not intentionally jumped off him. Like it really wasn't fitting, and he hadn't been playing well. Pops. So 6,800, I could play Lanto again too, and he has shown his upside for DraftKings purposes. So I think in the 6K range, those would be the guys I'd look at: Ortiz, Griffin, Tringali, Poston. And I mentioned Grillo because I'm an idiot.
All right, I got a couple for you. So Wyndham Clark at 6,600 is one I played last week, and he was popping for our Spectrum data from the Waste Management, and he continued that and actually improved upon it last week and finished 18th at Pebble. So I didn't run the Spectrum data for the entire event due to the strokes gained being comparable in only one event or one course for the first 3 rounds and then round 4. But I'll be playing him again at this price. If he's playing well, we've seen him pop. When you talk about upside, he actually finishes in the top 15, a decent amount for a guy that's priced where he's at. Other ones down here that I am interested in, when you talk about Sebastian Munoz, had a great fall swing, kind of in the Carlos Ortiz range. I'm probably more cautious on him due to the way the golf course sets up. It's like with it being the rough down, it sounds like, oh yeah, and you see guys like Bubba have won and JT, Rory, they've all played well, but it's not really a driving distance thing. And Sebastian's known for pounding the driver out there. So I'm curious how he'll play, but he is in my pool at a price. Affid Barnrat at 6,400, shot 7 under his last round. So I view that as a good punt spot for a guy that maybe have found something on Saturday and headed up here and gets ready and plays well. And then the other one that's a little bit higher up, Sung Kang, played him last week as well, and he had a disastrous Saturday. He shot 79, so 75, 73, 79. But longer term, you look over the last probably 4 or 5 months, he's been extremely consistent, and he's actually played really well here over the years. He's finished 8th, 22nd, 16th, and then a 64th last year. So I see he has the upside. And the last one that I will mention, Joseph Bramlett, 6,100, near minimum price. He's played, I think, every event so far in this early part of the season. Yeah, Sony, Amex, Farmers, and the AT&T. He's gained strokes approach in every single event. He's gained putting in 3 of those 4. He missed a cut at the Amex, but man, for a guy that seems to be playing well and the approach is really where he's been gaining the strokes, I will take a shot on him at 6,100.
Yeah, that's fair. I really don't have any takes on him. I've seen the name thrown around. I really just don't dive that deep into and a majority of that is me typically not being that big of an MME. I rarely flirt with golf, let alone at 6,500 like Tringali, but that's due to the depth of this field that you'll get some okay enough guys at these ranges. So I will leave the bare minimum 6K takes to you, sir.
Well, I think it's fun playing some of these guys, and they're not there's a big difference between playing min-priced Joseph Bramlett, who was an All-American and played extremely well until having shoulder surgery or back surgery or whatever he had, versus like Roger Sloan or Michael Gligic or something, like some guy from the Canadian Tour that's making it, which is great. That's good. You made it from the Canadian Tour to the PGA Tour, but I'd rather take my shots on these guys that are coming back a little bit from injury, that had huge, kind of like the Brendan Todd story, kind of in the same boat, where you were probably destined to be a top 10 player in the world. Whatever happened, you've completely crashed, and now you're on your way back. I'll take more shots on those type of players at min price.
Oh yeah, I remember playing Cantlay for almost like a year after he came back, like a year straight of just like $7,600 to $8,100 Cantlay, like just.
There you go.
It can be done.
Yeah, so for sure. All right, I think that pretty much does it, man. Hopefully everyone got through this podcast all right. As always, you can send Access a message, send me a message on Twitter or on our Slack chat. Happy to receive any feedback or add or take away. Obviously, this being a super strong field, try to touch on a little bit different ranges and try to give some thoughts, pros and cons for different avenues of construction. But you can always give us a message and let us know your thoughts on the podcast. Leave us a rating and a review, and we really appreciate it. So I'll give you one more chance, Axis. Do you have any final thoughts to tell the audience about this week at Riviera?
My only final thought would be, I think you can be different in GPPs going balanced. Maybe just take a little slice of money off the top, leave a little salary, nice balanced lineup, and cross your fingers one of these top 8 studs doesn't win.
I like it. And our ownership projections will be up later tonight or first thing Tuesday morning. So if you're listening to this on a different day other than Tuesday, well, it'd be up already. So you should check for the ownership projections. And of course, the podcast notes are always up at fantasygolfbag.com/podcast. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you later this week for the Tuesday live stream at twitch.tv/redkitcheek. Be me and Jacob diving in for our final thoughts, and then we will look forward to taking down another GPP this week at Riviera. See ya.